Here on the Wheelsboy channel, we're known for covering cars from Chinese brands. But today, we're going to swerve a little bit by covering a car from an international brand that happens to be majority owned by a Chinese company and exclusively made here in the Chinese market, the Polestar 4.
Welcome to Wheelsboy, where we cover the newest, coolest, and wildest vehicles from the Chinese car market. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell.
Now, we always discuss price when it comes to new vehicles, but it's an especially interesting topic when it comes to this car. That's because prices for the Polestar 4 within China are very different than they are for markets outside. Take the UK, for example. Over there, a single-motor Polestar 4 starts at about £60,000. A dual-motor starts at £67,000. Compare that to China, where the single-motor starts at the equivalent of about £33,000, and a dual-motor is £41,000. That's nearly half as much, despite the fact that, as far as I can tell, they're essentially identical. They use the same motors, they use the same 86 and 100 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery packs developed by CATL, and the same 400-volt charging architecture. So why does this massive price difference exist between China and the rest of the world? There's the obvious reasons like the cost of shipping and tariffs. In the UK, for example, it's 10% on Chinese-made vehicles that are imported. I think, however, the biggest reason is actually a lack of competition. Put simply, the Chinese EV market has lots of competition, and the rest of the world doesn't. Or at least their competition isn't to nearly the same level. In the European market, the Polestar 4 competes with products from brands like Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Porsche, Tesla, the Koreans, and a few other foreign brands. Meanwhile, in the Chinese market, it competes with all of those brands, plus so many other brands that I had to write them down in order to remember them. NIO, XPeng, Li Auto, Rising, Avatar, Voya, IM, Zeekr, Hongqi, Xiaomi, Jidu, Aito, Hyper, Arcfox, Denza, and a dozen other brands you've never even heard of. That's why brands, both Chinese and foreign, believe that they can price their cars higher in markets like Europe than they can in China, while still remaining competitive. And that's regardless of where they're built. Take the BMW i4, for example. It's built in Munich, Germany, but its price here in China is still cheaper than it is in Germany. This is also the reason that Chinese brands are so excited to export to other countries. Why stay in China competing over tiny profit margins when you could export to much greener pastures abroad? Okay, enough about the global car market. This car's exterior styling received a ton of attention abroad, not for what it has, but for what it lacks. A rear window. According to Polestar, this is the first mainstream passenger vehicle to delete its rear window, at least outside of Asian markets. That's because there's already been two Chinese cars that have used this particular party trick, the Avatar 1.2 and the Hi-Fi Z. Honestly though, I don't care who did it first because I think the rear end styling of the Polestar 4 is fantastic.
As a matter of fact, the Polestar 4 looks fantastic from every angle. Whether you consider it a low-slung SUV or a lifted hatchback, it's a striking design that wouldn't look out of place in a sci-fi epic. The windowless rear might get all the attention, but the front-end lighting, said to be a twist on Volvo's Norse Hammer-inspired daytime running lights, is equally eye-catching.
Deleting the rear window has major benefits for aerodynamics. That's because doing so means that they can make sure the air stays attached to the car all the way to here, resulting in a lower drag coefficient and greater efficiency. But it also has some other benefits that you might not have considered. Take the rear cargo area. It measures 526 liters behind the second row seats, but according to regulations, they can only measure that space up to the top of the seats right here. Otherwise, the objects might block your rear view. It's not really an issue on a car that doesn't have a rear window in the first place and relies instead on a digital rear view mirror. Because of that fact, you can load this thing all the way up to the very tippity top without endangering anybody. Like many electric vehicles, that 526 liters also includes a large storage area below the floor. Deleting that rear window also has the added benefit of allowing them to move the crash structure of the roof farther back in the design. That means they can maintain pretty okay headroom despite that really dramatic roofline. The overhead glass also extends to right above your head here, so it's not quite as dark back here as you would expect. As you could already tell from the exterior styling, they pushed the wheels to the very corners of the vehicle, leaving very little overhang, but a lot of wheelbase. This is a 4.85 meter SUV, but it has a wheelbase of 2.999 meters. That's 2 millimeters longer than a Range Rover. Polestar, like Volvo, is committed to using recycled materials on the interiors of their cars. That includes the seats. Unless you get the optional Nappa leather package like this, which replaces the base car's cloth seats with, you guessed it, Nappa leather. That package also includes 4 additional speakers for the 12-speaker Harman Kardon sound system. Those speakers are embedded here in the headrest of the driver's seat and the passenger seat. It also adds cooling and massaging to the standard heated front row seats. The optional Nappa leather makes it feel more like a traditional luxury car, but it makes me miss the character of the cloth. While we're talking about options, this car also has an option package which includes body color exterior trim, baby soft Alcantara headliner, and this very cool ambient lighting that glows through the cloth on the door panel. The ambient lighting gets even better though. If we go to the center screen, you'll see that the different colors for the ambient lighting are tied to different celestial bodies. For example, this is the sun. It's got a nice orange-yellow glow to it. Then we've got the Earth here. It's got a bluish green. And then finally, Mars, which is a deep red color. Each of those different celestial bodies has also got some facts over here on the side. For example, the average temperature there and the length of a day. If you go over here to the left side and you adjust the brightness of the ambient lighting, watch what happens to one of these bodies. Nighttime, daytime. That's just cool. While we're talking about the 15.4-inch center screen, I should probably mention that the operating system for the Chinese version is different than the one abroad. And I don't just mean the fact that this one is obviously in Chinese. They actually use completely different operating systems. The one abroad uses one developed by Google, whereas the one domestically uses one developed by a phone company called Meizu, which Geely, majority owner of the Polestar brand, also happens to have a majority stake in. Either way, the design language should be roughly the same, but there could be some small differences. If someone ever tells you the Chinese don't know how to make nice things, put them inside of a Polestar 4, because regardless of whether it's fit and finish or material quality, this thing is really, really well put together, at least as good as its sister brand, Volvo. The time has finally come for us to take the Polestar 4 on the road, and for that, we're going to need a key. Call me old-fashioned, but I think a premium vehicle should have a premium, hefty key. This is the key for the Polestar 4. A simple, black plastic rectangle which has no buttons. In fact, it has nothing except for a Polestar logo on it. And when I say no buttons, I mean no buttons. There's nothing to unlock the car, nothing to lock the car, nothing to open the trunk. In fact, this thing's only purpose is to sit in your pocket and activate the automatic unlocking when you approach the car and the automatic locking when you walk away from it. Clearly, Polestar, like so many other brands, wants you to use their app. First and foremost, what's it like to drive without a rear window? It's weird, but not in the way that you might expect. Cadillac's been using digital rearview mirrors like this for quite some time, so this is proven technology. The display is clear enough and responsive enough that you can adapt very quickly. It also provides a much wider and less obstructive view than any traditional rearview mirror. As an added bonus, when you activate one of the turn signals, the perspective shifts just a little bit over to that side, giving you an even better view. Funnily enough though, what I found myself missing the most wasn't being able to see out the rear window, it was other people being able to see me through the rear window. So take for example, if somebody were to let me in traffic, I'd want to give them a polite gesture like a wave through the back window. I can't do that in the Polestar 4. Or if someone were to make me mad, I would like to give them another gesture, which I will not demonstrate, but you can probably guess what it is. Either way, I can't do it. So the Polestar 4 with no rear window cuts down on forms of communication.
The Polestar comes with either an 86 or 100 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack. The WLTP range estimates for the smaller pack haven't been released, but Polestar says that a single motor model paired to the 100 kilowatt-hour pack will achieve a claimed range of 610 kilometers, while a dual motor with the same pack will manage 560 kilometers. EPA range estimates for those powertrains are 300 miles and 270 miles, respectively.
Remember when I said this was a top spec car? Well, I wasn't just talking about the Alcantara headliner. This isn't some economy class single motor, no. This is a dual motor making 400 kilowatts, or exactly double that of the single motor version. As such, its 0 to 100 kilometer per hour or 0 to 62 mile per hour time is almost exactly half as much as the single motor at 3.8 seconds. But outright speed isn't what I think of when I think of the Polestar brand. Instead, I think of handling. That's because the Polestar 2 remains one of the best handling EVs that I've ever driven. In theory, the Polestar 4 should be a Polestar 2 on stilts and stretched a little bit. But is it? Short answer, yes. This thing is faster than any Polestar 2, but it does have the same style of power delivery. That means it's very quick off the line, but it also builds torque in a way that feels easier to modulate than a lot of other fast EVs that I've driven. Those cars, whenever you want to leave a stoplight, want to break your neck. But this one allows you to drive pretty much as smoothly as you want, even in high performance mode. The brake pedal is firm and the brakes are good, which shouldn't be surprising because this has the optional performance package, which includes 4-piston Brembo front brake calipers and larger discs front and rear. It also includes those giant 22-inch forged wheels, a high-performance tuned suspension, and snazzy yellow seat belts. The double wishbone front suspension and multi-link rear have adjustable stiffness, with comfort mode being quite compliant and sport mode allowing you to feel pretty much every bump in the road. That's got a lot to do, I'm guessing at least, with the high performance suspension, but I do think a lot of blame has to go to those 22-inch wheels. Then again, they're all part of the same package, and that package also includes these snazzy seatbelts, so it seems like a must-buy. The trade-off for that sometimes jittery ride is that the Polestar 4 feels very light on its feet. The steering is video gamey in its feel, but it's highly accurate, and grip from the Pirelli P0 tires is very high. All of this is good enough that I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how this stacks up against the Macan EV. I was honestly a bit surprised with how well the suspension of the Polestar 4 was tuned, because unlike the Polestar 2, whose suspension was tuned by the European development team, this one was tuned by the China-based team. And before you go telling me this doesn't apply to my car, I'm going to have the European tuned suspension. No, you're not. Apparently, there is only one global tune for this car, so it's the same in China as it is in every other market. Don't get me wrong. There are talented Chinese engineers in every single discipline of automotive research, development, and manufacturing. However, suspension tuning has long been a weak point for these brands. So driving this car has given me a bit of hope for the future of what they can do. Polestar is a very tech-forward brand, and they made quite a big deal about the fact that the Polestar 4 was going to be the world's first production vehicle with Mobileye's chauffeur driver assistance system, and the fact that it was going to have a LiDAR unit from Mobileye. Thing is, as of now, there is 0 trim levels of this car that offer a LiDAR unit. Now, I think what they meant maybe was, we're eventually going to have a LiDAR unit available. Considering the fact that here in the Chinese market, LiDAR units have been available on a variety of brands for quite some time already, I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't make it available here, but they would make it available abroad. Since the Polestar 4 is being made available in other markets so much later than it is in China, I suppose it's possible that they will have LiDAR when they arrive, at which point it will also be an option here in the Chinese market as well. I think it's also possible that Polestar learned a lesson from Volvo. You see, the Volvo EX90's launch had to be delayed from mid-2023 to late 2024 because of its LiDAR unit software. I think Polestar decided, hey, better to launch a car without LiDAR than no car at all. That more advanced driver assistance system can't come fast enough because as it stands, this is one of the worst driver assistance systems I have ever used. It can't even stay in the middle of the lane on a highway. It just ping-pongs from left to right to left to right. And its lane changes, they're pretty slow and they're also a little bit jerky. It's 2024, so all it takes is an OTA upgrade to put all of these issues in the past, but as of right now, it's very unimpressive. One final complaint is that the dead pedal on this car isn't particularly comfortable. I have an average bordering on small foot, and I have a hard time finding a comfortable position in which to put it. I either have to cant it to the side or kind of ignore the dead pedal's existence entirely. While deliveries for the Polestar 4 have obviously already begun here in China, they won't begin in markets like Europe and Australia until around August of this year. As for the United States, I'm not really sure. It depends on whether they want to try and avoid that 25% tariff on Chinese-made vehicles. If they do, they'll have to wait until the second half of 2025 when they'll begin to make this in Korea. Either way, whenever this thing debuts, I'm sure it will be a competitive addition to those markets. In China, meanwhile, they have already cut those crazy low prices that I mentioned at the beginning of the video by an additional 20%. EV price wars, bad for manufacturers, but great for consumers.